Wander Wealthy Podcast, episode 173 with Julia Menez. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Wander Wealthy Podcast. My name is Tess. I'm your host, founder of Wander Wealthy, and business coach for all of my fellow money coaches of the world. Whether you are a new money coach, you've been doing it for a couple of months, you've had a couple of clients, you're aspiring and really thinking about, is this something I can even do? I don't know. Or you've been doing this for some time and you're feeling a little frustrated with your progress, then, honey, I'm here for you. I'm going to help you create a life-changing coaching program that is going to sell out like hotcakes. And I'm going to help you do that by knowing exactly who your ideal clients are, where they're hanging out, and how to create content that will ultimately sell your program for you. So if that's something that you want, then stay tuned until the end of the episode because I got something for you. But in the meantime, I want to introduce you to this week's guest. Her name is Julia Menez, and she is a writer, speaker, and founder of the travel hacking lifestyle website GeoBreeze. After traveling to more than 30 countries before the age of 30 and saving thousands of dollars each year by travel hacking, Julia uses her 3 points of the travel hacking lifestyle to teach time-crunched early career professionals how to hack time, travel, money, and productivity. So I brought Julia on this episode today because I think her expertise and her experience can really be super useful for you if A, you are working your full-time job and you're starting and looking to start your money coaching business on the side and figuring out how to juggle that. And B, because a lot of the work that she does is making travel more doable, more affordable, more attainable. And we had a really good conversation in this episode about how so many people have travel as a bucket list item, but then never end up getting to it because of their fear around making that commitment. And we talk more about why that is and how you can even start dipping your toes in the water of getting out and traveling. And I say this because so much of what I do and the way that I live my life is obviously living this kind of strange digital nomadic lifestyle. And I will say that if I didn't know about travel hacking and be able to utilize it and leverage it to my benefit, then this lifestyle might not even have ever happened for me. Like I wouldn't have found myself doing what I am doing today, living abroad and working and running my business. So I wanted to bring her on to share her expertise and her experience around both ends of those spectrums, whether it be about travel hacking specifically or about hacking your productivity and how you can balance it all and find time when you really do feel time crunched. So without further ado, let's get into this week's episode. And before that, I want to know what your biggest takeaway is, or I want to just see where you're listening from. So go ahead and take a screenshot and tag me on Instagram at Tess_Wicks and Julia at GeoBreeze Travel. And we can't wait to check out where you are tuning in from. So now we can get back into this week's episode and into the interview. Here is episode 173 with Julia Menez. Julia, welcome to the Wander Wealthy podcast. I am so excited to have you on the show today, and we're going to talk about so many awesome, juicy things around probably the entire topic of hacking. But just wanted to say welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
And we have so many interesting, unique connections, which will probably come up through this show as well. But let's go ahead and have you just share your story about how you've gotten into travel hacking, into productivity hacking, and ultimately decided to start building this resource for others online.
Sure. So I originally learned about travel hacking through different FIRE blogs, which are for financial independence, retire early. And probably had the same initial reaction to travel hacking that most people have, where I thought this is probably a scam and it's going to destroy my credit somehow. So it actually took a bit longer than probably is expected for my husband and I to really accept that it was a viable solution to save a lot of money on traveling. And so we just got one or two cards at first in 2017. And our first travel hacking experience was when we traveled to Morocco that year. And our tour guide actually had to cancel on us about 20 hours before we boarded our flight.
Oh no, it is a scam.
Oh, there was no travel hacking yet. So this guy,
okay, good.
we had like got this guy on Viator or something on the internet, and he had taken care of like our hotels and was going to drive us everywhere and all of the excursions. And then he had a family emergency. So then it's like, well, I have to find us a hotel with 20 hours to spare. So luckily we had just gotten the sign up bonus on one of the cards that we had signed up for. So we were able to actually save a ton of money just by using the points we had just gotten to stay at like the Sheraton Casablanca, which was a really nice hotel. And then from there I was kind of hooked, where I said, oh, this actually works, and we can just spend normal money we would have normally spent on this credit card and then get points, and then we get to travel for free. So that was our first experience, and we've been running strong ever since. We probably open anywhere between like 2 to 4 new cards each year, just between my husband and I. And then as far as building this out into a resource, GeoBreeze actually started off as more of a traditional travel agency, and I opened it just so I could get more travel hacking business credit cards, and I was just doing travel agent stuff for family and close friends.
Okay.
I didn't really love the travel agent side of things. Chasing down commissions isn't fun, and the resources were okay. I didn't love the portals. So when COVID hit and no one really needed travel agents anymore, I just took it as a sign to pivot and instead use the platform and the website and everything that I had built to instead spread the message about travel hacking, which I get way more excited about than traditional travel agenting.
Cool. And so the story that you share on the website is really cool because you talk about kind of creating this hacking mindset in a way, which I think is really unique, because I think a lot of us just think that everything has to be really hard and there's no real way around it other than like going through it and forcing your way. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so a lot of people, when they get into travel hacking, want to dive straight into the tactics of what is the best card that I should get and which card should I spend on which expense. And I really want to train people to take a step back and think, why do you even want to do this, and what value can it add to your life? Because if you just jump into travel hacking with the sense of going straight for the details and the tactics and doing more of a bottoms up approach, it's just one more stressful thing that gets added into everybody's busy lives, which is not what it should be for. I always tell people that the productivity hacks that I share are so that you can have more time for happy things and not so that you can make time for more stressful things. And
right.
Like, don't use productivity as a way to cram even more stress into your life. So I just wanted to take that kind of unique angle to travel hacking, because everything that I read is so focused on here's the best card to get right now. And I think it's important to say, why even travel hack at all? And is it a good fit for you? And what kind of value is thinking like this going to add into your life? Because so many people do just think, oh, I'm going to cram as much as I can. And if I can travel hack, then I can cram more travel and more credit cards and more into my life. And I really don't want that to be the message that everybody gets out of travel hacking.
And I think it's really powerful because you work and have your own full-time job, and one that you're like, this is something I want to do and I want to keep doing. And so even building this resource isn't something that you're planning on, and maybe I'm making an assumption here, but planning on having it become this other full-time job or a full-time business that you want to run outside and then quit your job. And so I think what's unique about your situation is you're juggling a lot of things, because travel hacking on its own, the way that I think most people would approach it is this is a very time consuming hobby between like doing the research and then actually traveling, and planning out, everything that you're going to do when you do travel. But then also you're creating this side resource for everyone else, plus you have your job. So can you talk about how you utilize the hacking mindset with being able to balance all of these things that you have, that like all these different plates that you have spinning in the air?
Sure. And so I think a lot of this also just comes from more of an actuarial mindset too, where one day you're suddenly credentialed and you think, so what do I do with all of this time now? If you've been spending the majority of your life just studying for actuarial exams, and then you have to fill that time that you're so used to working towards a goal all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so then in order to fill that time for me, I've actually just gone through a few side hustles, and it's really just been me trying to find hobbies that are interesting enough to keep me occupied and then also attract people to talk with me about topics that I really enjoy and can help with.
Yeah.
So when I first started out with all of this and then juggling the travel agenting thing, it was just really to help people. So I helped a friend plan a destination wedding, happened to get commissions out of it. And there was a point in time after that when we had just moved to New York City where I became a nightclub promoter on accident, and I was just trying to make new friends. And so I organized this meetup for some girls that I met on Bumble BFF. And then a promoter asked if I could just do that regularly and he would pay me. So that ended up being another like quick side gig thing too. And then when travel agenting and nightclubbing dried up, then I had time on my hands again. So then I just pivoted my content to talk more about how to use these skills of travel hacking to save money and time and sanity while we're all at home. Mm-hmm. And as far as juggling everything that's going on, my coworkers have always asked me how I had time and money for traveling. And I always thought it was a funny question because I'm like, we all get the exact same amount of vacation days and roughly the same salary. Mm-hmm. So then I analyze, like, what is it that makes it so that I can travel a lot more than everybody else? And I think what happened is most of the people I befriend are already married by the time I meet them. So then I was always amazed when people were like, oh, I'm going to 4 weddings this year. I'm like, how did you get invited to 4 weddings? And they would ask, well, how did you take 4 international vacations? And I think it's just one of those, everybody has their unique situation.
Right.
How they want to organize their time and their money and the different priorities, because if a lot of your time is going to different people's weddings, then travel hacking is really useful for that too. If you're flying across the country a lot to go to your best friend's wedding in a different country or a different state.
Sure.
So yeah, there are a lot of different productivity hacks and tactics that I can share. Like, for example, I pile all my work meetings on Wednesdays as much as possible, and then I try to have as few meetings as possible on Mondays, and then just use that as deep focus time, because a lot of people have a morning routine where they will block off the first 2 hours of their morning to do their affirmations, meditation, exercise, healthy breakfast, what be it. Mm-hmm. And I do that with my whole week, where I say Mondays are just blocked to set up the rest of the week. But the mindset and the prioritization around building out side hustles and building out these productivity hacks are way more important than all of just the little tactics and tricks like that, because the tactics and the tricks fall into place where if you're coming from a place of, oh, I already don't have time, there's no way I can just clear out Mondays for deep focus, then it's harder to go that way. So it's really important to just take a step back and say, what is my ideal week of productivity going to look like? And what do I really need to make sure is a non-negotiable thing that I make time for, mm-hmm. and approach it that way.
I think that's really helpful because there's so many pieces that I want to break apart of what you just shared. And first and foremost, many of my clients and my audience members are working on building out their side hustle. Most likely it's their online money coaching business or coaching business in general. And they have a full-time job and they're trying to balance, like, when can I have time to do my side passion or my side hobby or my side hustle with my job? And a lot of times you'll hear people give advice and you'll hear people who don't have, other coworkers or their own boss give the advice of, like, manage your schedule in a way that helps you become more productive. And then the objection to that from someone who does have an employer is like, well, I don't have control of my schedule. So I'm curious how you're able to, take as much control of your schedule as possible. And like, maybe what do those conversations look like for any team members that you have, or even managers that you have that might want to book you when it's kind of, you're like, this is my day that's reserved more for this. Like, how do you set that boundary from the get-go, and how do you maintain that boundary?
So my team at work does this thing where we just block off 4 hours throughout the week, and we choose our own hours for deep focus time anyway, so it just looks like a normal meeting block, so that nobody tries to schedule that anyway. And then I'm in a manager position, so I have a little bit of sway over my team to request that we do all of our status updates and our weekly meetings with each person on Wednesdays. Made the same request of my manager, and he said yes. So that takes care of most of the meetings, are just the weekly one-on-ones, weekly status update meetings. And then I do have some meetings on the other 4 days of the week, Tuesday through Friday. And a lot of times people will just be pretty flexible if I request to reschedule from Monday to somewhere else. And I don't always just need to say, oh, it's because of deep focus time. I just say, hey, are you available on Tuesday at this time instead? It gives me an extra day to make sure that materials are put together for this meeting, and so that we're not just coming into this meeting fresh out of the weekend. It gives us a day to prepare, and most people are okay with those kinds of reasons if they need reasons at all.
Yeah. And I think like the ultimate lesson here is like, don't be afraid to ask. And I also feel like once people understand that like you're just someone who doesn't typically do meetings on Mondays and it could be for a various set of reasons, but like, it's just kind of like if a friend is like, oh, I don't go out on Monday nights. And so then you're like, yeah, of course, I'm not going to invite that person out on Monday nights because that's just the precedent that they've set. And so, it takes some time to obviously finagle your way into setting these boundaries and making sure that you communicate with the people who are booking you and see if they're up and willing and open for rescheduling. But also after a while, that just becomes permanent because people just know, your style of communicating and having meetings and scheduling in a sense.
Yeah, I think it's also important to have, I think you've talked about non-negotiable times during your podcast before, where I block off an hour for lunch each day just to make sure that I have a little bit of a mental break to separate what's going on in the morning versus the afternoon. And sometimes I will just use that to knock out a small 25-minute task or something on my side gigs. So it's also really important to not underestimate how much you can get done in a half hour or 20 minutes or something like that. If there's an email that needs to just be sent out, or preparing an outline for a blog or a podcast or anything. So just taking advantage of little 20-minute bursts of productivity, whether it's if you wake up early in the day or during lunchtime or right after work or sometime in the evening, anytime on weekends. There's a lot that can get done in 20 to 30 minutes.
I want to pivot a bit and talk a little bit more about the travel hacking piece, because for me, travel hacking was traveling in general was one of the big things I wanted to do when I started my own business and did eventually leave my job and wanted to, I always wanted to explore and go around, and travel hacking has been the key thing for me to be able to do that. But it took me a really long time to even when I had the time, it took me a long time to actually put traveling into effect. And I think a lot of people do this where they have travel on their bucket list, but then they don't actually go about the traveling, trying to figure out how to make it happen, or it just becomes this thing that's way bigger than what it tends to be when you actually get out and travel and you're like, oh, this was way easier than I thought. And you touched on, lifestyle in terms of some of your colleagues look at you and go, how are you able to travel so much? How are you able to afford it financially, but also from a time perspective? But I also think there's like a mindset thing that people have to get over to see that traveling is possible for them. Have you noticed this? And what do you think, had to flip for you in order to start exploring travel and then start, doing travel hacking as a way to make it even more affordable.
Absolutely. I see this with people all the time. So there's a lot to unpack here. I think a lot of people are afraid to set concrete goals, whether it's with travel or money or something else, just because they're afraid of what that says about them if they fail to meet their goal or their dream, or if it's something that they share with people, are other people just going to laugh at them for having these huge, lofty goals? Will they feel rejected? Are they going to feel really lonely that they're thinking about traveling the world for free, and it's not a very common thing to talk about at cocktail parties? So I think there's a lot of fears in just the planning stage of fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of being lonely if you're successful. So that's just the planning piece of it. And then additionally, travel hacking, and really any kind of travel, requires taking a clear look at your financial picture, because travel hacking cards generally require your credit score to be at least 700 or 750. And I'm sure you're very well aware, a lot of people are just afraid to look at their finances or their spending habits, because I always tell people you need to have a good idea of what spending categories you have the highest spend in, whether it be gas or groceries or restaurants, so that you can tailor the cards that you apply for to be the ones that get bonus points for those categories, which involves logging onto Mint or something like that and taking a good look at your expenses. And a lot of people just don't want to face what they've been doing because they feel some sense of judgment, or they're judging themselves about what's been happening. And that plays into it a bit as well, where they don't want to face the money side. And then lastly, I think a lot of people do just get overwhelmed with how to make a travel hacking plan. There's a lot to learn when you're first starting out. It's not easy to figure out where to start. And there's so many stories out there of how to not destroy your credit while travel hacking, and horror stories about somebody got their account shut down because they got flagged for fraud or something. And those people are probably doing very sketchy things with credit cards, where if you stick to a very reasonable plan, Chase and American Express are not going to come after you for doing that. These types of things tend to happen to people who are turning credit cards every few months or buying money orders off of their credit card or something like that. There's a whole concept called manufactured spend to get more points without ever having to actually spend money on it. So there's just a lot of fear mongering with getting into the travel hacking game, which can be a huge mental block for people as well.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people with any goal that they have, they feel like they have to do it perfectly or not do it at all.
Exactly. And so that's another thing with travel hacking. There's so many blogs and Instagram influencers who have pictures in a first-class cabin or the biggest suite at a 5-star hotel. And a lot of people first starting out feel like, oh, if I'm not getting a first-class flight for free, I'm failing at this, which is not the case at all, because even if you're only travel hacking enough to get a free round trip flight once a year to go back to see your family, if you live in a different city, that's still one free flight a year, and that's still hundreds of dollars that you've saved through this habit. You don't have to be doing everything that every Instagram influencer is doing just to make it a success.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is your kind of recommendation? And this might just be like based on time and what's available right now, but what's the best thing to start with, especially for someone who is looking to explore kind of like a virtual working lifestyle, and maybe they're looking to like go abroad somewhere, or even like go across country and just stay for a week or a month and then go back home?
So if we're talking about someone who is just starting out, there's a couple of things I suggest before even applying for any cards. So first, just play around on Pinterest or something and figure out where you even want to go. And then you can do some research about what airlines fly there, what hotels are located there, and what credit cards you can use to get free flights or free hotel stays. And then after that, it's really important to take a good look at your financial picture, not just your credit score, but also using a tool like Mint so that you can better understand which spending categories, whether it be restaurants or transit, that you naturally would spend a lot of money in anyway, so that you can get cards that give you bonus points for money you were planning to spend.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're already at the point where you have some cards and you're just wanting to figure out how to stay organized because maybe you had one travel hacking card that you've been using for a few years, but you're not really sure how to expand the game, I recommend using awardwallet.com, which tracks a lot of your points for you. So there's a lot of different organizational tools. I also recommend to people that they get a Feedly account, which is an RSS reader where you can subscribe to different travel hacking blogs to get the latest headlines on what cards have new offers or any of the rules or terms that might be changing. So that would be for somebody who's already in the game a little bit. But if you're first starting out, I would just start with, where do you even want to go?
And then looking for the cards that would support that, like whether they're connected with the airline that actually travels there, the hotel chain that's actually in that area.
Exactly, because if you're trying to plan a trip to Japan and then some airline that only flies to Europe is running a sale on points or has a great credit card promotion right now, well, that's not going to help you to get to Tokyo. So even though it might be a really good promotion, it's not a good promotion for you if you have no intention of flying to Europe anytime soon.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of Europe, I was looking on your website and I saw that you haven't been to many places in Europe, but you've been to over 30 countries. So where is the next place, once traveling is available again, that you want to go within Europe?
Ooh, that's a good question. We actually would have been in the Netherlands last week if it weren't. So we had to cancel that trip. And then around the Netherlands, there's so many other countries, like we could have gone to France or Germany or Belgium. So that would be an easy thing to go as well. And we might want to try to rebook that trip once everything is open back up. And then, yeah, there's so much there that we haven't explored yet. I think we've only been to the Baltic states, and then I've also been to England and Spain. But in 2021, there's a conference that I'm going to in Poland. It's the Women in Travel Summit in Europe. So we'll see if I do anything like that before next September. There's also a Nebraska game that will be played in Ireland in 2021 that my husband really wants to go to since we're Nebraska alumni. So we'll be planning a trip to Ireland as well.
Sounds cool. All right. I want to talk a little bit about money now, and specifically your story with money and your relationship with money. This is just something that I love to open up and share everyone's own personal experiences with money, because I think it's something that isn't talked about. And actually, usually people are pretty secretive and uncomfortable to talk about it, when in fact it doesn't have to be a taboo subject. So we'll start with your money story. I'd love to know how you grew up around money, what you learned about money either during childhood, or if your career has actually played a significant role in how your current relationship with money is now today.
Sure. So my parents immigrated to the U.S. from the Philippines in the 1980s after living through a dictatorship. And so with that comes a lot of interesting views about money. They definitely wanted their kids to have the American dream life, but at the same time, they were pretty frugal. So as kids, we would get really excited about like sales and things like that. And then we also would really tap into the local community because people were always really generous about sharing skills and resources with each other. So you don't have to just go out and buy a prom dress. We probably know somebody who can make one for you. And so I have like a custom prom dress or something like that.
Right.
And so that was like the nicer side of everything, is, and probably where some of the hacking mindset comes from, is you don't have to just flat out pay for money for things. You can probably tap into your network or come up with a creative solution to get nicer things. But at the same time, there was always that stereotypical thing about, oh, you need to finish your food because there are starving children in North Korea. And like, there was just so much talk all the time about how my parents came from like a completely different world and there are starving people there. And so I really started to internalize that like wanting nicer things could make me a selfish, spoiled brat since there were so many people in the world who had so little. And so one of the things that travel hacking lets me do is to slowly bridge that. So where I could get myself nicer travel experiences that I felt that I earned by studying up on the hacking process, since education was also a very big focus point. And it's also slowly helping to erase those stories about what kinds of people are allowed to have these nicer experiences. And it's not just completely reserved for people who are either born really rich or are very selfish people when they should be giving back to the world, because I think you can do both. You can have all of these really nice travel experiences and then also share with people who might not be able to afford it how you can do that without just brute force spending thousands of dollars to fly to Europe.
Sure. Yeah. So let's talk about how you make money. Do you have more streams of income than your full-time job?
So my husband and I both work. I'm an actuary and he's a software engineer, and that's the majority of our incomes. We also have a lot of investments in the stock market, which will hopefully go back up one of these days. Last year I had some income from the travel agent and club promoter gigs, but that's pretty much zero this year. So now I'm building up the travel hacking coaching thing. And there's also a few things right now that I just do for fun and for free. Like I host travel hacking workshops and I do speaking gigs and a brand collaboration here or there. Those aren't income generating right now, but if I decide that I like them, then I would have those free things on my resume and I could turn those into streams of income as well.
Absolutely. What are you and maybe you and your husband currently saving for?
So we're fortunate enough to where we could buy almost anything we want at this point, unless it's some kind of debilitating medical thing. So a lot of my money goals aren't really around saving. My money goals are more so around revenue and growing the travel hacking business. Cool. So I was watching Suits on Amazon Prime the other day, and there was a quote about money's just a way to keep score, to see who wins. And so if I were to think of what does winning feel like these days, it's more like somebody signing up because they want to work with me and learn about travel hacking, or if somebody were to send a thank you note saying, oh, hey, I took some of your tips and then I got this really great upgrade. That would be a win, or even just getting tagged in pictures of hotels where somebody was able to use some of my resources to get free upgrades at hotels. So rather than saving for a particular money goal, a lot of my goals now are more so around business growth and creating more impact to help people.
Cool. What is one random thing, and we're going into the quick and dirty Q&A round, just so you know. So I want to know something completely random that has nothing to do with travel hacking or your work in any way, shape, or form that you just can't stop thinking about lately.
So we've been watching Suits, and I keep looking at all of the pretty dresses that they wear on that show, and I just keep wishing, I wish I dressed like that and I was that fashionable. But then I also think that looks so uncomfortable and like tight and itchy all the time. So I spend a lot of time thinking about what it's like to dress like that every day. It looks like it takes a little bit of work, especially as we're all in COVID right now and hanging out in t-shirts and shorts and flip-flops for work every day.
I think maybe you're just like having some withdrawals of being able to go out in public and have, I don't know, dress up for something.
For sure.
What's your favorite account that you like to follow on social media?
So there's an account called Going Zero Waste. So part of, I think, my personality of really liking optimization and efficiency is liking to reduce waste, whether it's wasted time or money or anything else. So I like to dabble in the zero waste space where I cook with ingredients that might be thrown out, or I make my own cosmetic products sometimes, or beauty products. I use coconut oil for everything. And the Going Zero Waste social media account just has a whole bunch of fun, creative ideas of how to reduce waste and how to DIY a lot of different household and beauty items.
Very cool. What is the best piece of financial advice that you've been told that you'd like to pass along?
So when I was first starting out at work, I was really obsessed. I'm still obsessed with free things, but I was even more obsessed with free things when I was engaged. And I would chase down all of these free things from different bridal shows. And one of them was this chemical peel that I got. And long story short, it did not go well. And so then I came into work the next day, like completely red and peeling. And my boss at the time was like, "What happened to you?" I was like, I got this free chemical peel. And then she said, just because someone offers to rub $90 worth of chemicals on your face for free doesn't mean you have to let them. So I guess the best financial advice is sometimes it's worth spending a little bit of money to get things that you actually want rather than just taking things because they're free. Mm-hmm. And having that prioritization mindset is really helpful and literally will keep you from getting your face burned off from just trying to get free stuff all the time.
Yes, absolutely. And I love that. I feel like that kind of really seamlessly relates to the prioritization and optimization that you were mentioning with like going zero waste. And sometimes I feel like I came from a very frugal mindset as well. And it's interesting how it all played out in my family because I'm the youngest of four. And I used to get so obsessed with just like finding the cheapest deals. And until I was like, I don't want to have crap anymore. Like I want to have one really nice thing that actually works. And I'd rather just pay a little bit more for it than just get all the little random knickknacks and then have a bunch of stuff around.
For sure. I think a lot of people also who have a very frugal mindset almost just go way too far off the deep end with it, where it's almost like you're seeking validation in discipline of denying yourself things that cost money. And that's one of the things that I want to help people with the travel hacking coaching as well, is to make sure that they think of travel hacking more so as a fun game and a way to access experiences that they haven't had before, rather than a way to skirt around feeling not worthy of anything that isn't free. So kind of ties back in there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Julia, thank you so much for coming on the show. I can tell that this is going to be super helpful in so many ways, from productivity to helping those who are building out their side hustles and side businesses, to also helping them see that traveling is super accessible and they can live a little bit more of a nomadic lifestyle, and they can do it quite easily using some of your tips that you shared. I'd love for you to tell us where we can find you so we can continue to follow along with what you got going on.
Perfect. You can find me at Instagram mostly is where I hang out. I'm at GeoBreeze Travel. And additionally, I have a free downloadable gift for your listeners at geobreezetravel.com/wanderwealthy. And the gift is an email template that I use to get free hotel upgrades all over the world. I think the biggest win that we've gotten off of this hotel upgrade is we saved $1,000 off of the Waldorf Astoria in Maui. They upgraded us from a $500 room that we got for free up to a $900 room, and then also sent up $100 worth of gifts like champagne and different local snacks. So the email upgrade template is amazing, and I've used it in so many different places.
Oh, that sounds nice and easy breezy. I'm going to have to check that out. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I will link up everything that you just mentioned in the show notes. And this was such a fun conversation. Thanks again, Julia.
Thank you so much. It was so much fun talking with you.
And that's a wrap, episode 173 with Julia Menez. If you guys want to get at any of the links that she shared with you, any of the resources from this episode, head to the show notes by going to wanderwealthypodcast.com/podcast/episode 173. Now, I promised you at the beginning of this episode that I'd tell you a little bit more about what I have in store for you if you are a new, aspiring, or frustrating money coach looking to build your life-changing coaching program and find those dream clients. So in May, I was going through and opening up the beta round of the Wealthy Coach Blueprint. And although it's not open for enrollment at this time, it will be very soon. And so I wanted to give you an opportunity to get on the wait list so you can be the first to know when the next round of the Wealthy Coach Blueprint goes live, and you can get an opportunity to come and join me for a 12-week, super intimate one-on-one coaching program to do just what I mentioned earlier, help you build your life-changing coaching program specifically suited for your ideal clients, determining who those people are, identifying what it is they want to get from you, what they're willing to pay, because yes, they are willing to pay, and know exactly where to find them and how to attract them into your program. If you're looking to start your money coaching business and get it off the ground for the first time, or you're overwhelmed and feeling a little bit oversubscribed to so many experts out there telling you to do all of the different things, like start a podcast and a blog and a YouTube channel and be on every social media platform and create tons and tons of content. I want to be the one to tell you it does not need to be that hard. It does not need to be that difficult. And there is a simple process that we can go through to build your business from scratch or from wherever you're at and really help you see that you can be a money coach. You can claim that identity and you can start making a consistent living off of changing your ideal clients' lives, off of making a huge impact and working with people to help them change their lives. So if that's something that you're interested in, head to wanderwealthy.com/apply. You can jump on the wait list and I will let you know when enrollment opens up for the next round of the blueprint. All right, that's a wrap for today. Thanks so much for tuning in with us and joining us today. And until next time, I hope you wander wealthy.